Hi, I'm Dr. Eleanor Ansell. I'm a clinical psychologist specialising in neuropsychology, and I work at the West Herts Community Neuro Rehab Service. Well, everyday memory problems can generally be divided into remembering information and remembering to do something. And there are a few things that can help with that generally. So things about increasing the strength of the memory, being organised, getting into a routine, and using prompts and reminders will help with that. So in terms of increasing the strength of the memory, the more, if you've got information you need to remember, the more you repeat it, it's going to increase the connections to that memory and make it much stronger. Also, if you can draw it, speak it, write it, then you've got 3 different pathways into that memory. And again, that's going to make the memory trace much stronger. In terms of organisation, if you can structure the information that you need to remember it again, it's going to be easier. So imagine that you have a whole list of shopping that you need to buy. If you can structure your list, first of all, if you write it down, it's going to be helpful. But if you can structure that list into different types of shopping, so for example, fresh fruit and vegetable, meat, household goods, toiletries, then by clumping them together, it's going to be easier for you to recall them and think about it if you've missed any. It's also going to be easier to find them in the shop too, because you've got them in a list when you're looking around those separate departments in the store. Other things that will also help is obviously keeping things in regular places so that you organise so it's easier to find them. Making sure that as soon as you get your appointments, you write them in the diary, or you keep your appointment letters in one place. Again, is going to take the strain off your memory and help. Routine is also a big aid in terms of your memory. So if you can get into the routine of checking your diary once a week to see what you've got planned, if you can check it in the morning and just before bed about the next day as well, that's going to help you plan and remember things. Also, if you've got activities that you keep missing because you forget them, if you can make them into regular activities, so every Thursday you go to X, again, it becomes much easier to remember to do it and get into the routine of doing it. So routine definitely is your friend. And finally, and probably the most important thing, is taking the strain off your memory altogether. All the gadgets on the market are brilliant. So using diaries, calendars, alarm reminders, post-it notes on front doors and all sorts of things can really help you, and it takes the strain off your memory. I'm a massive fan of the smartphones too, because they have a camera option in them. So when you're out and about and you see something that you need to remember, so for example, if you see a poster with an event you want to go to, or a friend recommends a book that you want to read, take a picture of it and store it in your phone, and then you've got it there. And the same for your appointment letters or even your reports. If you can take photos of them and store them on your phone, then it takes the pressure off you remembering to take that letter with you to appointments. You've got it all there. They're also great because they've got reminders all in one place. You can set them up to coincide with your calendar. There's note pages, and you can also dictate into them as well. So if you're having problems with dexterity, there's great options in them where you can just use the microphone and it will text. And in fact, to be honest, it's quicker than texting anyway. Yes, lots of things. Memory and cognition is very much affected by your mood. So if you're feeling anxious or depressed, it's going to get fuzzy, it's going to get slower. If you are having a very stressful time of things, or if you've had an argument with somebody and you're feeling very emotional and hurt about it, you're going to struggle to remember something. Sleep. Sleep is when we lay down our memories and consolidate them. So if our sleep is disrupted, that's going to affect how our memory is. And if we're not getting enough sleep, again, that will also have an impact. So think about some good sleep hygiene techniques. If you are struggling with your sleep, stay off the electronics just before you go to bed. Think about having a nice warm bath before bed if you're struggling with going to sleep, or if your mind is racing and you're struggling to focus and relax enough to go to sleep, then sometimes just getting up for a little bit and then trying again can help. Also, if you're very fatigued generally, and obviously with MS often people are, so just being aware that if you're feeling very tired, that is going to affect your cognition. So don't beat yourself up if you are feeling very fatigued and then there's the knock-on effect. Just be kind and actually allow yourself some time to relax and maybe get a bit more sleep, and then see how things go after that. Pain also can affect our cognition. The reason for that is, again, we're being distracted by the pain, so it's much harder to get information in, it's much harder to get information out. Drugs and alcohol can also affect, obviously, if you're drinking quite heavily, you're not going to be sleeping so well, your memory is not going to be so good. Different medications can affect memory and cognitive function, and a lot of recreational drugs too. So for example, with marijuana, it can affect your short-term memory. So again, just be mindful of those kind of side effects as well. If you're not going out and getting fresh air and you're not keeping up some level of exercise, then your metabolism will slow, and again that will affect your cognition as well, because everything begins to slow a little bit. First of all, remember that word finding difficulties are very common even within the general population, and they're really affected by stress and anxiety. The more we're trying to find the word and the more pressure we put on ourselves, the more elusive the word becomes, and it becomes harder to grasp at it. So really the best advice with this is to take the pressure off and relax about it. So either go, I can't think of that word at the moment, it will come back to me, and often it will just pop back in, or sometimes finding another word, not getting so fixated on that word but using a different word which will equally do or almost be as good. Or sometimes describing what you're talking about can help, particularly if you're talking to somebody, so that they can also help you out. So for example, if you couldn't remember the word olive, you might say, I can't remember what the word is, but it's those black round things that you find on pizzas. That will either help it pop back into your mind because it's taken the pressure off, also it's going to help the connections find the words within your brain, but also the other person might go, oh yeah, olives, and then you can just move on and not worry about it. Another technique that sometimes works is if you go through the alphabet in your head whilst trying to think of the word A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now, it could be that this prompts it, but probably more likely what it does is, again, it's a distraction and it takes your mind away from the pressure of finding it. If you're finding that your word finding difficulties are really impacting you and you're really struggling with them, then they're asked to have a referral to a speech and language therapist. They have loads of really good techniques that can help you manage with those, and they're really the experts in terms of treating word finding difficulties. If you struggle with concentration, often the main thing is to keep things simple and to do things for short periods of time. We often can't concentrate for long periods of time, and particularly if it's a very busy, distracting environment. So if you've got a big task, think about breaking it down into smaller goals and spending some designated time on each of those smaller goals, and then having a break between them so that you're only concentrating for small amounts of time. What we know is our concentration is better and worse at particular times of the day, and that's very unique to you. So if you know that your concentration is better in the morning, for example, then try and put tasks that you need to concentrate more on into that time in the morning, so it maximises your opportunity to concentrate on it. And then think about not trying to do things at the times where you know your concentration is going to be worse. Other things that might help are trying to reduce the distractions in the environment. Now, sometimes that's not always possible. So if you've got young children around, it might not be possible, although if you choose to do tasks when they've gone to bed, it might help. If you can't change things, if you're at work in a very busy environment and you can't move to another room, then what you can do is maybe be a little bit more assertive. So if you know that you've got to concentrate on something for a small amount of time, letting people know that not to disturb you at those times and come back when you have finished, or go back to them when you're on a break, might help. If your concentration is bad, then also think about allowing yourself more time to do tasks. If you are time pressured, you're going to be anxious, that's going to make your concentration worse. So think about allowing yourself more time to get something done. So if you've got a piece of paperwork that needs to be completed and you know there's a set deadline, maybe get down to it in small chunks sooner rather than later, so that you're not time pressured at the end. That can be a tricky situation, and some of it depends on your relationship with your employer. But as a rule of thumb, obviously it will depend on how you get on with your employer, but if you can be open about some of the difficulties that you're having and offer up solutions to them, then that can be open up the dialogue and support. Often employers don't know how to help. They're obviously quite stressed themselves as well, but if you can give them some solutions too, that can really help. Occupational therapists can provide a bit of advice, and we can do cognitive assessments which can also help you. But also think about how you approach it with your employer. So rather than going to them, I'm having memory problems, I'm struggling with work, think about saying it slightly differently. So think about, as you know, I suffer from MS. I've noticed that I'm having some memory problems. My memory's generally okay, but I'm really struggling with remembering information that's told to me on the hoof when I haven't got anything to write it down on, or just remembering all the details from meetings. I've been thinking about this, and I wonder if you could just email me any requests for things for me to do, so I've got it at hand to refer to. And also, could we make slightly more detailed minutes in the meeting so that I can refer back to them as well? So that sort of approach will help because it's offering solutions, it's less daunting, but that's not always possible, and they may need to think about buying new equipment or thinking about your hours. And again, an open dialogue with that will help. And also, if you can get the backup of a OT report, an occupational therapy report, then that might also help.